Hey, welcome in. Well, I did a video a few days ago on this Lizzo and how she was quite upset about commercialized body positivity movement, the commercialized body positivity movement. And we have to make people uncomfortable again. And this is part of the, kind of body acceptance or fat acceptance. And I'm in this video, I'm not using the word fat as a pejorative. This is what they say now. So I guess they've reclaimed that word. So I guess that's the correct usage now. Otherwise, you're oppressing somebody. But anyway, again, I did this video on Lizzo, and basically it just seems to be that, you have to agree with them that being obese, morbidly obese, is not only beautiful, but it's also healthy. Where does all this come from, I wondered. So I thought I'd take a little bit deeper of a dive into it. So first off, let's just find the first definition we can find on the internet. Here's something from the conversation.com. Explainer, what is fat studies? It says here, fat studies is an academic area of research and scholarship. It's not about fat as a dietary substance, but rather about fat human bodies. So what does this mean? It is indecipherable. It doesn't mean anything. It's not about fat as a dietary substance. A dietary substance, what? But rather about fat human bodies. This doesn't mean anything. So I guess they mean it's not about fat as like a substance, but it's about fat human bodies, which are also things. So it's about fat, not about fat as a thing, but about it as another thing, so none of this makes any sense, right? I can't decipher that. And anyway, it continues, fat studies is an interdisciplinary field combining perspectives and research methods from the humanities and social sciences. So when anything has like studies behind it, like race studies or gender studies or something like that, what they mean by research methods is they just make stuff up and then you're expected to accept it whole cloth. That's what they mean by research methods. This is not helpful at all. Let's find something else. Just going to interrupt for 1 second to say if you like this content, subscribe so you can see more. Thanks a lot. So there's actually a journal called Fat Studies, an interdisciplinary journal of body weight and society. And here's an article. This is from the first edition of this. Why a journal on fat studies? Now, I am thrilled to tell you, this is hilarious. It is like Monty Python. Honestly, you can't make it up. This is really quite funny. They didn't intend it to be funny, but it's funny. And this is from 2012. Editorial, why a journal on fat studies? Well, I was wondering that myself. Let's find out. And, even before we start on this, the journal's called Fat Studies. It's called Fat Studies. Okay, anyway, it says here that fat studies is a field of scholarship that critically examines societal attitudes about body weight and appearance, and that advocates equality for all people with respect to body size. Okay, well, people do have equality under body, like in the only way that matters, which is equality under the law, but okay. It says, Fat Studies seeks to remove the negative associations that society has about fat and the fat body. It regards weight, like height, as a human characteristic that varies widely across any population. It says Marilyn Wan in 2009, one of the first activists to use the term fat studies, stated, quote, unlike traditional approaches to weight, a fat studies approach offers no opposition to the simple fact of human weight diversity, but instead looks at what people and societies make of this reality. Well, I always thought that people just, what they made of this reality was that some people are fat, right? I didn't think it went any deeper than that. And some people choose to do something about it. Some people don't. Some people decide, hey, I like living like this. I'm just going to take my chances. And I don't have a problem with that. I could stand to lose 20 pounds myself. Nobody's going to force you to lose weight if you don't want to. But you're probably better off if you are. That's the way everybody sees it. That's reality. That's just normal. Things like diabetes also exist, right? Anyway, this is when it starts to get really funny, okay? The size acceptance movement began in 1969 when William Fabry founded NAAFA. What does that stand for? Well, maybe I should read that to you. The National Association to Advance Fat Acceptance. A National Association to Advance Fat Acceptance. Wow. Initially, the National Association to Aid Fat Americans. Oh, that's grand. In the 1970s in Los Angeles, a group of fat women formed the, and again, this is their use of language. I'm not using it as like a pejorative or an insult or something. This is what they say. In 1970s Los Angeles, a group of fat women formed the Fat Underground. The Fat Underground. Okay? Yeah, it's like the Velvet Underground, but with a lot less heroin and a lot more cake. Anyway, this Fat Underground was a way to organize against discrimination of fat people by the medical profession via diets and medical practices. So diets are oppression. I don't know if you knew that. This is Monty Python. They should have made a movie about this. You know, the Fat People's Freedom Front, or the Freedom Front of Fat People. This is Monty Python. And this is taken seriously. This is far leftism, okay? Obviously, this is on the far left. This is all a part of, you know, when they say it's multidisciplinary, they mean this is part of all the gender theory and the critical race theory and all of the intersectionalism, all of the craziness, okay? When you buy into that stuff, you think that dieting is oppression. You honestly believe that. I think it's kind of freedom. Right? If you can move better, right? That's kind of more freedom in my opinion. Anyway, two of their members, Judy Freespirit and then Aldebaran, I guess it's just one name, wrote the Fat Liberation Manifesto. Fat Liberation Manifesto. Wow. That was in 1983, which demanded respect and equal rights for fat people. Okay. Fat people have equal rights. They're equal under the law, okay? The respect, you don't get to just demand a respect. I'm sorry. Why? What level of narcissism is this? Where you get to demand respect from people? Respect is earned. You don't get to demand it from people. I mean, how does this work where you get to demand it? Do you get to go to people's houses and harass them? You know, like Antifa's doing in various cities across the United States now? Anyway, I mean, as I was telling you, I mean, this stuff it's actually just pretty funny. So it's well worth doing this video just for the humor in it. I thought I'd take a look at some other stuff here. Let's go to one more thing before we finish this. Here's something. Fat Studies, Mapping the Field. This is from the online library, Wiley.com, and Sociology Compass here. And this is an abstract of this article, Mapping the Field of Fat Studies. And this is from December 2010. Okay, so an extensive body of literature concerning obesity already exists, but this paper seeks to map the field of an emerging body of work that is critical of that dominant discourse. So they're going to be critical in 2010 of the body of literature concerning obesity that already existed. Okay. It says here, although it has been most recently mobilized by the rhetoric of an assumed global obesity epidemic or moral panic around fatness. Now, is there a moral panic around fatness? Is there any panic at all? Or are there just simply health concerns? Like there are concerns for healthcare systems in countries like the US, Canada, Great Britain, because it does cost more. You're going to cost more to the system if you're obese. Just ask any doctor, any doctor at all. Just ask them. They'll tell you that. And you know what also just springs to mind right now is that this is all about oppression, right? Everybody has to be oppressed these days. If you're fat, you're oppressed. Throughout human history, being obese has never been a sign of oppression. It's been a sign of quite the opposite of oppression. The vast majority of human beings who have ever lived, right, have not had the privilege of being oppressed by obesity. That just seems to be obvious to me. Why isn't it obvious to them? Anyway, no, they're oppressed. Anyway, let's keep going. So we have the moral panic around fatness, which doesn't exist, although there are reasonable concerns, both for healthcare systems and for just people's health. I mean, again, diabetes is a real thing. Heart attacks are real things, right? Strokes are real things. Anyway, Fat Studies has an extensive history and interdisciplinary literature which questions and problematizes traditional understandings of obesity. Of course it problematizes. That's all that this stuff does. All of these different critical theories and blah, blah, blah studies courses, feminine stance studies, all of this stuff. It just that's what they exist for, to problematize. They already know the answer to every question. And the answer is, we're oppressed, and this is the person who did it. Anyway, I keep going off on rants, but let's continue. So it problematizes traditional understandings of obesity and draws upon the language, culture, and theory of civil rights. Like, what is it? What is the social justice and social change here? I don't get it. Being overweight is not an immutable characteristic, okay? You can't change your height. You can't change your race. But you can lose weight. You can lose weight. You can gain weight. You can lose weight. It's not an immutable characteristic. And I would say that it doesn't belong in the conversation of things like civil rights and social justice. I don't think that makes any sense. Anyway, let's just finish this off. Fat Studies enables the reframing of the problem of obesity, where it is not the fat body that is at issue, but the cultural production of fat phobia. So being overweight isn't the problem. It's an irrational fear of fat. Do you have an irrational fear of fat? I think if somebody is obese and all of a sudden they start to panic a little bit because of health concerns, I don't think that's irrational. I don't think that would be an irrational fear, because phobia is an irrational fear. They're saying fat phobia, being irrationally afraid of fat, which again sounds like something out of Monty Python's Flying Circus. But we see here, and we'll end it with this, is that it's always the shifting from the individual's personal responsibility to everybody else. So that's what they mean by reframing the problem of obesity. It's not their fault, it's your fault. It's your fault. Now accept them, bigot. Anyway, that's all I got to say about that. Please subscribe, like, and share. It really helps me out. I thank you for that. If you just like to listen, there's a Radio Baloney podcast. It's on every platform, including CastBox. Thank you very much. I'll see you next time.